Welcome to the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn, Hoffman, and Eric Johnson. Today we're talking all about condos. What should you know when you go to list a condo or even help a client buy a condo? Because they are a little bit different and there are some challenges. Lynn, like we were just saying, there's a number of things that
First thing I wrote
make
down
these
was
things different.
type of condo.
Yes.
Are we talking today primarily about a high-rise type of condo?
Any type of condo, really.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we were talking just before we started filming about the condo high-rise, but you have the townhome condo. There's different types of condos, house condos.
Yeah, there's all sorts.
Specifically the condos, any type of living condo, because it is a little bit different in that there's a condo fee, so there's an additional fee on top of this. So let's talk about approach for an agent. So an agent wants to go out, their client, let's talk about listing first. So in listing a condo, what are some of the things you recommend to agents that, when they're going to speak to somebody to do a listing presentation on a condo, what are some things that they should be looking out for?
Well, I would certainly be wanting to look at what the condo's bylaws are, and even if I could get a hold of the status certificate and things like that, or if they've had their reserve fund looked at recently, what special assessments might be coming up. Sometimes the condo corps wait until the roof needs redoing and then they'll do all the roofs or they'll do all the windows. But those things work off their plan, and they have a plan that they have to keep a budget for and a reserve fund for. And so that dictates when those things get done. You just can't walk into a condo and say, oh, I don't like these windows, I want them changed. No, that's not going to happen. It happens when the condo corp and the corporation is ready to make those changes. So I would be looking at all those things. I mean, everything from rules about pets to noise to smoking to, do you have a parking zone that's dedicated to you inside or outside, all these things. And how you're going to live in that condo. I have lived in 3 condos, and I've moved out of all 3 of them. And usually for me, it's because there's too many rules. Or I wasn't aware of the rules when I moved in, or how strictly those rules were going to be reinforced. So very important to speak to the seller, find out all that information. I would also do my research on Geo Warehouse. I would also look at who else is sold in that building, and maybe collaborate and get some information on how did that go? What things did you run into? Because there's going to be a lot with a condo. There's things that you need to know, and you don't want to wait to the last minute or misrepresent the facts to any potential buyer. That, my friends, can get very expensive.
Huge. And you mentioned, you mentioned a lot of things in there.
I did.
So let's start. I mean, let's separate some things here. So there's rules, there's bylaws, and then status certificate. So let's start with status certificate, because that's the big thing that most agents are aware of. And, we know that some people will want to go ahead and pre-order and have it so that people can have a look at it. But there can be a danger in getting it.
Yeah, a
too
status
early,
certificate
right?
is only good for the day it's actually drawn.
That's right.
So to the closer to the day it's drawn is makes it more viable. Now, when the market was moving crazy in 2021, you could pre-order a status certificate if you got the property sold in 7 days, and then it was ready to go. In this market, not so much. Save your money, wait till you've got a conditional sale, and then pay the extra money to get it expedited.
Yep.
So that it goes a little quicker. There's a website you can go on to order status certificates from most places. There is a premium for that, but if it makes the deal firm up faster, then to me that's a cost of doing business and well worth it.
Yeah.
But you've got to remember that status certificate basically is really only good the day it's drawn on.
Yeah, and I literally had a conversation this week with one of the lawyers that we associate,
Right.
one of our partners, and talking about if it's like when they're requesting a status certificate, if it's X number of days old, they're not even looking at it. They're requesting a new one.
That's right.
So, to your point, is not you got to judge the market
Yeah.
and go, just wait till it's asked for. Now, if you wanted to pay for one yourself so you can see what's going on, so you have a better, because to be honest, a lot of the condo owners don't know.
They don't know.
What's going on with it. So if you ask them, they have no clue.
No.
So you as an agent may want to, pony up and get that and order it just so that you can know for yourself. If you're not fully versed in it, then talk to a lawyer. And this goes back to having connections. We talked about networking a number of episodes back, and one of those networking professions would be a lawyer. And
Right.
so having a real estate lawyer that you can reach out and say, could you do me just a quick favor? I just, real quick, boom, boom, boom. If they're willing to do that, you might have to pay for that time, but maybe they'll help you. But it's having a view, but getting that status certificate is so key,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You-
and a lot of the lawyers, to your point, our partners, and even some of our agents, they know if a building has some inherent problems because they've dealt with it before.
Exactly.
So maybe there's a balcony issue, or maybe there's a structural issue, leakage around balconies, which seems to be a very typical one. They may have had an issue with that before, and they can tell you about the building at ABC Block Street that has a problem in the past, which makes you more aware of it, which helps you out in the long run. So, I mean, the sellers may not even be aware of it if they've only been in the building a few months. They
Yeah.
don't always know.
And I had a case in the last couple of weeks where an agent, there was a condo where they mentioned in the status certificate about a special assessment.
Yeah.
But then that was taken care of and that was no longer the case.
Right.
But if you're holding on to an older status certificate that says special assessment,
Yeah.
and everybody's writing, they were trying to get everybody to write letters saying, no, it's taken care
Yeah.
of, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But it made it that much harder to sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why these things are tricky, people. So it's important to really, lean on the lawyers
Yeah.
when it comes to the status certificates. Understanding, especially if you don't understand it yourself, then you need to find somebody who does and understand that because it can make a big difference.
Well, I've got a couple of agents that are in litigation over some issues with that, and particularly around making statements such as, yeah, the roof's covered, and yeah, the windows are covered, or yes, the water's included in that extra money. You need to make sure it's not the water in the common area that you're talking about. There's the common area and there's the private area of the unit, right? And sometimes we hear things and we get confused about what those are. Well, that confusion can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars if they go to a litigator to say, you said this was my fee, and my fee is now $200 more per month. 200 times 12 months times 5 years is a lot more money.
Yep.
So there's a lot of these issues, and they can all be resolved if you get the information or if you give the lawyer more days to look at it. We all want to get it done quick, but sometimes 1 or 2 days is not enough time for the lawyer to really do a good job at looking and reviewing the documents. So you have that opportunity to take longer to review the documents
Yep.
if you write it into the agreement, right?
Yep.
But my point here is that you cannot always rely on what you're told, and you need to find out what's material to your buyer, and then make sure you're pinpointing those questions in the offer. Case, I wanted to move into a condo that was on Lakeshore in Burlington, and there was a 0 pet rule. And I specifically asked, I needed to have 2 cats be in there. We had to write it in the offer, but I also waited and made it conditional upon receiving a letter from the board of directors that was allowed. We didn't wing and prayer it because you don't want to leave a family member not able to come in the house or in the condo. So you do these things first, and you make sure you've found out what's important to your client.
Yep. Yeah, and it's to that point we get into bylaws and rules.
Right.
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 And we just moved in the last few months, moved into a new condo, still kept our old condo, renting it out. That's another thing. Can I rent it out? Is that allowed?
Is it allowed?
Right. So there's some people that will buy condos, specifically the high-rise condos, for the Airbnb, which
Yeah.
we had Rachel Stemsky on
Yep.
here a couple couple episodes ago talking about that. But there are a lot of places that are cutting down on the Airbnbs. So
Yes.
you want to see, do they allow, if your client is interested in short-term rentals, hey, then you got to find that out. Is it long-term rentals? Are they looking to rent it out? Can they rent it out? Do they have to go to the board? Do they have to get somebody else to approve them
Yep.
going in? So there's a lot of things that get covered in those. And one of the things that, you know, and my wife, as you know, is part of our organization, so we're both in real estate. We both know we didn't ask for the things right away, but then when we went and spoke, you know, we firmed up, went and talked to the super, talk about what, you know, what's required to move in, et cetera. Then I get this big sheet of rules.
Yes.
And it was interesting where they said only one person can move in per day.
Per day.
And they talked about how some lady had bought, and the day before just called them up to say, hey, I'm moving in tomorrow. And they go, no, you're not.
Nope.
See, what do you mean? No, only one person per day.
Has to be
And sorry,
booked.
it's already booked.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's important.
Kind of, isn't it? Yeah.
Their agent, I'm sure their agent got a nice
Yeah.
phone call.
Yeah.
But things like knowing, okay, we were going to make some renovations. So then learned that, hey, in this particular building, a lot more senior people. So when they, you know, on the board and they said no noise after 4 p.m.,
Right.
no nothing on Sundays, no work on Sundays. So it was good for us to know ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because we were planning work, said, okay, we got to take time off. We're going to do the work during the day, all the banging and noise, knowing what the rules are around pets, as you said.
Critical.
What are all those things? Because you firm up.
Yeah. You're stuck.
Like you said, if you had firmed up without having conditions
Yeah.
in there about the cats,
Yeah.
what
We would have-
happens?
Well, we
Now-
would have been turned away. We wouldn't have been able to bring them
yeah,
in.
and then you would have been a bad taste in your mouth.
Oh.
You would have had to close, and
Yeah.
now I got to
And then
turn around
move.
and sell it.
Yeah. So.
Which for you,
Which
let's
is
face
not a
it,
problem
not
for me,
you.
but laughing about this because we also own a home, a detached home that is part of a vacant parcel of land condo. And, you know, when you're going to buy things, you're kind of all in love and all starry-eyed and everything's wonderful, and you don't always listen or read all the stuff you should, myself included. I know about no fences. You can't have a fence because that's part of the way they keep the landscaping. But also, no renting for short-term.
Yep.
No renting for short-term. So you have an empty house in a vacation city, and you can't put a renter in it for 4 or 5 months of the best season, you can't do it. Can't do Airbnb either. So to your point again, that becomes a
Huge.
very important thing. So my point of all this is when you're sitting down talking to your buyers, ask them what is material to them. What are the things that are going to make or break them making that move into the condo? And then y'all need to go find out what those things are and make sure that you're not selling them a bag of goods or, you know, that hope springs eternal that somebody's on the board is going to change their mind about allowing those
Yeah.
things, because that might not happen and you'll be stuck. There's even a building in Oakville that we lived in for a little while, had a no children's rule.
Yep.
Had a no children's rule. And I'll tell you, that got tested a couple of times. So you don't know what you're going to run into until you've done your due diligence. And that means talking to other agents that have sold a lot in that building, talking to your legal friends that do real estate law and specialize in this stuff, and just watching the history of a building. There's been just a ton of them in Oakville and Burlington that have had balcony issues, serious ones.
Oh, yeah, and we've seen
And
that.
special assessments
Toronto,
are
there's a
through the
number of
roof.
things, you know, the glass ones, windows coming out, et cetera. And I think, you know, you mentioned a little bit sort of the common elements, right?
Yeah.
So there's, what do you have access to? I think the other
Mm-hmm.
thing is important. If it's a condo home, condo townhome, you know your parking. If you're in a condo high-rise,
don't.
is there parking? Is there storage lockers? These things you got to know. Some cases, it's a separate deed to the
It
parking
usually-
space.
and to storage
And
locker,
you'll see
too.
it when
Yeah.
you do that search. I think that's all important. It's important to see how many parking spaces do they have, because the one condo that I still own that we rent out, we were given one parking space down below. And that's all. And to be honest, the rest is visitor parking. But all the owners are parking, and we keep getting letters. We kept getting letters. It's supposed to be for visitors, but they're not doing anything about it. So everybody just still parks there.
Until they do something about it, which
Until they
is
do
getting the parking authority to come tag you all.
Yeah,
And
if
they
they
can.
decide to do that.
They
And
can.
I've seen some condos where people, they only have one parking space, but they
Yeah.
have two vehicles, so one car's always parking on the road.
Right.
Which can be a problem
Yeah.
in the wintertime here in Ontario.
Yep.
Is that when there's certain snow events, you can't be parked, you'll be ticketed.
Ticket and towed.
So it's important to know this information.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that, for a newer agent, so let's talk about newer agents. Or even just, new clients. Let's talk about people that are new to buying a condo.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that they think, well, I own this, so I can change whatever I want. Like, we can rip down this wall, we can change the flooring,
No, we
we
can't.
can do this and that, but no.
you can't.
That is, when you get into structural items, you get into flooring, that usually has to go through the board.
It always has to go through the board. I actually was the president of a condo corp of 39 units for
Yeah.
a while. And people had made some structural changes, which they shouldn't have, and they had to get put back the way they were. And in a high-rise type condo, if you're allowed to have hardwood floors, and if that's part of the thing, that's fine. But if you go into one of the older ones where it's been carpeting, you may not be able to change that carpet for hardwood. You better be checking first, because there's a sound issue between the floors. So you're absolutely right. You kind of own it, but you don't have all the control over it that you would in a freehold home. And if you're a person like me that doesn't like a lot of rules, or rules that not making much sense to me, you might be owning it for a while and then leaving. So you really need to know
Yeah.
if this is the type of living you want. And it's a great type of life, it really is, but it comes with some other things that you just need to be aware of.
Yeah. You might get away like flooring in a condo townhome versus a condo high-rise,
High-rise is
right?
a different issue, for
Definitely,
sure.
because I
Yeah.
know in mine, it's
Yeah.
a high-rise, we're in the top floor.
Yeah.
And there is a thing saying if you're putting in hardwood, that there's certain padding, and we moved in to hardwood, there's certain padding underneath to prevent
Yeah.
the noise. Now, let's talk about, most of this stuff, this last little bit has been talking about high-rise, but if we get into the townhomes, et cetera, or the common element condos, a lot of them will have the townhomes. I know people that have moved in and they love it because somebody comes and does
Yeah.
the shoveling and they
Yeah.
cut the grass, but it's on their schedule,
Yes,
usually.
yes,
But it's important to know exactly what they're going to do.
Exactly.
Right? They're cutting the grass, but are they taking care of the gardens? No, then that's on you.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to have a garden? Like those things.
and yes, colors, especially on semis and townhomes where they're connected, there will be qualifications, what door color you can paint, what window color you can paint. I mean, it's all for the greater good, so that things look unified. But if you buy it and they're black shutters and you don't like black, don't be painting them a different color, because there are restrictions to that.
Find
So,
out first, yes.
Covenants, you've got to find out what they are first. It just comes down to know what's important to your buyer, and then make sure you're reading all the documents correctly. Or if you don't want to take on that challenge, when you send it to the lawyer for lawyer's review, perhaps mark out what the things are that you really want them to dig into to understand, because those are most important to your client,
Yeah.
right?
Now, let's talk about inspections.
Yeah,
Because when it comes to condos
yeah,
and you do an inspection,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if I'm looking at a high rise, the inspection, there's your unit and then there's common elements.
yep,
And you're not having your inspector go and inspect all the common elements. They're doing your unit.
they're doing your unit, but in Burlington, we've had some instances with Kitech in the walls, in the older condos. So I do recommend you still get a home inspection even for your unit.
Oh, no, for sure,
Just to
yes.
make sure. Do you need to worry about the roof? Probably not. But in the instance of the condo corp that I managed, they had flat roofs. They had decking, like an upper level deck roof.
Yep.
Flat roofs are a bit of a thing.
Pain.
Yeah, very much so. So would it hurt to have your inspector look at that? Because it's within your unit, you can walk out on the top deck. It might not hurt because they may be able to alert you to some things that you want to get fixed by the condo corp.
Yeah.
Okay? So while you're not doing the common elements, I don't think it's a bad idea if they kind of just do a cursory walkthrough. They can point out to you things that maybe the condo board hasn't got on their list of things to be fixed.
Yep.
Or, if the ceiling's falling down in the parking garage because people live above it or people drive above that, things like that, they will notice them.
Yep.
And although you're not responsible for them, the condo is, which means that if you get a special assessment for it, who's paying that? Is the seller paying for it before they leave, or you, Mr. Buyer, paying for it when you arrive? These are questions you need to know.
Yep. And, the whole concept of special assessments, I think that's important to bring up.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a newer agent, right?
Yeah.
A newer agent has to be aware that, if you're working with somebody on a limited budget, going into a condo, God forbid something happens, and, we've seen all kinds of stories over the last few
Yeah.
years of tens of thousands of dollars
Absolutely.
in special assessments.
Absolutely. And they have to be done by law. I mean, the condo corp cannot
for
not
sure.
do them. They've got to get done. The question is, you need to find out how the condo board is going to resolve it. Are they going to go and get a loan to do it? And then set that out between all the people in the building over time? Or would they rather not get a loan, and would they rather put that money on the unit holders to get it all fixed?
Yep.
And those are the kinds of things, the questions that the lawyer can help with. But you need to know special assessments are real.
No, for sure. And I think I just bring it up in the sense of
Yeah.
they need to have this conversation
Yeah.
with their clients, letting them know. Not to say that it's going to happen, but, again, asking the questions. It's
Yeah.
really getting to know your clients, and is this the right lifestyle for them? And as you pointed out, there are a lot of different styles of condos. We're not really getting into the, just the common elements condos. We're just talking about the, what people are living in. It is a unique challenge, and not an overbearing challenge, but there's a little extra that you have to do.
Yeah.
Rather than just selling a regular freehold home. So,
But I will tell you this, I've known several agents that have got in the ground floor at the beginning of a condo being built in Burlington and Oakville. And they've made a very good career out of being the expert real estate person for that entire building. They know who's moving, when they're moving, what the unit offers. They really understand it inside and out and better than anybody. So again, that's where you're looking for that expertise. You can make yourself that expert if you put in the time. Also, it's good to know the different property managers.
Yeah.
There are some property management companies that people pull a face and go, ugh, God, they're terrible. Because they don't take care of the properties. And there's others that are very reputable and good. So it is important that you could go down and rank the property management company that comes with the property.
yep.
So it will give you an indication of how that property is going to be managed, and you'll be able to more confidently say to your buyers, so-and-so is managing this building. They have an excellent rating. Their condos are always well-maintained. They have a great board of directors that follow the rules.
Yep.
Would give you more confidence than if it's one of the bad ones.
Yep.
Again, something to think about. And then make friends with some of the people, the property managers. Get to know them, get to understand who they are and how the building works.
Yep. And I've seen agents that have specialized, have made condos
Yeah.
their niche.
Yeah,
Know
100%.
somebody, it was weird kind of relation through the family, but cousin of a cousin type of
Yeah.
deal, that called herself the condo queen.
Yeah,
And she lived in this one condo. She became that expert.
yeah.
And she focused her entire marketing was around condos
Yes.
because she understood it, loved condos, breathed condos. She
Yeah.
was all for it.
Yeah.
I was new to it. I built a couple of homes. I haven't lived in as many as you have, but I was always those separate. Rented in apartments first, then got into home ownership, having a yard. Now my second condo, I love it. It's the ability to lock the door. I'm not doing the yard every weekend. it is a great lifestyle
Yeah.
for those who enjoy it.
And I think there's,
And that's the important part.
and there, it looks good. So I have bought condo units on a whim. Walked in, fallen in love, and just said, nope, gonna do this. This is perfect. We were tired of the gardening. We were perfect. Lovely, fantastic. We move in it, and I don't even think it was 6 months, and realized, I can't go outside and do stuff outside. I can't do this, I can't do that. And it just wasn't for me at the time.
Yep.
So again, when you're working with your buyers, these are questions you really need to understand. Make sure they know what it's going to be like, especially if they've come from a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home and they're used to doing all their own stuff. And,
Yep.
you got to make sure they're actually ready for that transition as well.
And also the ability to downsize.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I had a garage
Yeah,
plus a shed
Yeah.
and all these tools and all
Yeah.
these gadgets, and I'm going,
it's a lot.
and I have to downsize.
To
I mean,
the
I went
storage
from,
locker space.
my first condo was like 800 square feet, and I was in a 2,600 square foot home, moved down to a 2,100 foot rental.
Yeah.
To an 800 square foot,
That's
like
big.
it was getting rid of a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, but it was good. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it was good to purge a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff. I really didn't need it. That's what I learned. But I would say this, definitely talk to your clients, ask a lot of questions, because it is a different
them.
lifestyle. If they've never lived in a condo before, just ask a lot of questions. And then the other thing I would advise is to an agent, Lynn, is the follow-up. So, my plan for post-close has always been 1 day after, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Reason being is not sometimes they're embarrassed to say, we made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
So if I'm following up on a somewhat regular, I'm checking, make sure everything went well with the move, appliance is working, that's all great. Have you had a chance to meet the neighbors? What do you think of the building? What do you think of the community?
Yeah.
And if I'm asking this and I've got quite a few touch points in the first 3 months, and saying, look, I heard something, maybe it sounds like you're not quite loving it. Look, if you don't quite love it, we can always
We can
turn
move you.
around and move. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
And when you reinforce that, they go,
It's
oh,
okay.
I'm really not liking it. But that goes so far and makes you look good, because if they go to somebody else,
Because they're embarrassed to come
because they're
back.
embarrassed because you haven't touched base
Yeah.
with them, you may have lost that client forever.
Yeah.
So it's important to follow up, especially if it's their first time moving into a condo. It's to
No,
me,
I
it's just so important.
totally agree. Totally agree with that. And I think that's important in all things we do, but I think particularly that where it's such a choice. Agents follow instructions. That move that they made to that was their decision to make. You don't own that. So you shouldn't feel bad. I think agents a lot of times are afraid to make that phone call back. What if something's wrong? What if something doesn't work? Look, they're not looking to you to fix it usually. They're just looking to say something, or somebody listens to them to be heard. Sometimes people just like to talk, right?
Yep.
But don't be afraid to go back and talk to them and find out how they're doing. And if they're like me and 6, 7 months later, they don't like condo lifestyle, they shouldn't be afraid to come back to you and say, look, we really don't like it. How about we put it on the market and you go help us find a house?
Yeah.
That's okay too.
Oh, for
You
sure.
know, but you won't know that if you haven't stayed in touch.
Yep.
And I think that's a really very important, valid point. Stay in touch with people. Ask them how they're liking it. How are they adjusting to that space?
Because it is different.
It's an adjustment.
From somebody,
Yeah.
like my new condo does not have a balcony.
Yeah.
My old one did, and I could cook on it
Yeah.
every weekend with the barbecue, and I was
Yeah.
a big barbecue guy. Now I don't have the barbecue.
Yeah.
But I'm okay, and I've adapted, and I've found
Yeah.
different ways. So, but not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
So
Stay in
it
touch.
is so important to stay in touch.
Stay in
It
touch.
is-
It should happen automatically. You shouldn't just be specific to this.
Oh,
You
no.
should always be doing this. But I think in this particular case, where it is a dramatic change of lifestyle
Yes.
and downsizing and rules around what you can do and what you can't do. I mean, on that last one, I even joined the gardeners committee just so I could work outside on the property. I mean, it was nuts, but it was my mistake. It wasn't
Yeah.
it was nobody else's. And I think if you go back and talk to your clients, they'll really appreciate that, and it may be the right thing for them, and God bless them, they're happy. But if they're not, you're there to help them.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So that is, talking about condos, and when you're looking to help people buy into or sell the condos. On another episode, for those who might comment, we will be looking at new construction condos, assignments. We will have another episode. We'll bring in our lawyer friends to talk all about assignments for those looking to make money off of those new builds, trying to flip them over. But hopefully you've gained a lot of knowledge in terms of how to approach selling and helping people buy into condos. And I think the key thing is just having a lot of conversation and asking a lot of questions, and making sure that they're good with this new lifestyle, especially if they're new to condos. So thank you for joining us this week on the Business Real Estate Podcast. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode. And as usual, like, subscribe, follow, message us. We love you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.